So like in this video I want to try to explain my understanding of life, or like what we what we call life, because like the 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 average person, I think, determines life as like a level of existence such that like for a vegan like a vegan says that like life in terms of degrees, like they put an animal above, okay, they'll say like a human is above an animal, then an animal is above a plant, and like plants are above like non-living things. But in terms of like, okay, so like for them, they've already they already have a preset in terms of like the degrees of life each of those things have. That's why like we see stones and like things like that as non-living things. But when you, okay, and I'm talking about this as someone who's like, I've dabbled in all, okay, not all, but like most schools of like theology and religion, and like from what I understand is like we we tend to forget that we are part of an ecosystem. Like we are all in it together. Like a vegan is trying to create that degree of separation by trying to say the life of an animal is better or like more important than the life of a plant, but like we all know it shouldn't. Like a person who understands life knows that even the life of a plant is just as you shouldn't diminish it like that. So like we're all in it together, we're just surviving together, we're all part of a living, breathing universe. Like it's an ecosystem where like we all need each other. If the stones weren't there, the plants wouldn't be there. If the plants wouldn't be there, the animals wouldn't be there, and so on and so forth. So like when I try to talk about a living, breathing universe, I'm like, when you see like Chinese schools, or like different schools like Taoism or like Taoism, like they have this idea of like chi, or maybe it's Tao, I'm not really sure, where like everything in the universe contains a degree of sentience, or of like it has that primordial energy of life. So it's chi in Chinese terms. And like in other, I think it's in Hinduism where they call it I think it's, nah, I don't think it's Dharma, but it's even, oh, it's Om, like, or this idea of Om, where there's like a primordial sound that vibrates through everything. So like for me, when how my understanding translates that is that in all of existence there was a, like this, for me the idea of primordial sound is, it's like the best way to describe it, where like there was an initial existence that impacted on itself, and like the what we're experiencing now are those the ripples of that impact. So like for me, all that compounds itself in an equation. Like, and like I know people ask how the equation comes out. For me, it's just how it comes out. So like what, for me, the equation damn, the equation like comes out as what we determine as existence, or like a level of consciousness, is a result of the soul, which in these terms I'm describing as what, okay, so like what I described as like the primordial sound. In Christian terms, we call like, people call the Holy Spirit, or like the Spirit, which is the energy of God, or like the totality. So like the soul is the piece of the spirit that you're calling your own, or like what you're limiting your existence to. So like a human being will say they have a human soul, but like in like the Buddhist wheel of samsara, you see like there's a god soul, there's a human soul, there's an animal soul, there's like the soul in hell, there's like all these different souls. So like in other schools we have like in Gnosticism, or like proper schools of spirituality, we understand it as a light body. So like your soul is just the piece of the eternal, of like the eternal light, let me call it that, or like the piece of the universe that you're calling, like that you're strongly calling your own. That's your soul. So your soul, to the power of the time it's given. So like here it's more of a question of like the force of impact. So like with enough time, most people, you dictate the impact that you have. So like um, if I was to use like a stone falling into a pool of water, the heavier the stone, the bigger the ripple, or like the wave that's formed. So like that's how you're supposed to think about it. So like your soul, depending on its weight. So like the weight of the soul is determinant on time. So like the time it's given, whether you're a good soul or a bad soul, you still have the time to like balance where your weight is going. So like that's the example. So like so the soul, to the power of the time it's given, is the impact. So like that's the progenitor, or like the creator of the sound. So when this is multiplied by the fate or the karma, or like, and I know this is like a really metaphysical concept, but I want you to think of karma as the reflection. And I know you're going to ask, where is the reflection coming from? So like the reflection is coming from the idea that everything in the universe is a circle, or like it's it's bound in itself, let me say that, where like there is no there is no escape or like wasted energy, like in terms of the circle itself. So when the progenitor creates sound, or like makes the impact is felt throughout and reverberated within. So there is no escape or like wasted motion, or like it's all just self-contained, let me say that. Like everything in the universe is just self-contained, everything is a reflection of itself. Where in us that when we talk of karma or fate, people say like it's like a predetermined thing. It and like this is another thing that I'll say, like life is paradoxical. So it is and it isn't. So like your fate is determined by the impact that was made prior. So like if I'm a bad, like we all talk about bad karma and like good karma. In spiritual schools, the idea is deepened in it that good karma and bad karma always take the, like both take the wheel. So like if you make the impact today, depending on the size of your circle, or like the size of your universe, the impact will reach the walls to travel back in either a short time or a longer time, depending on the connectivity you have to your universe. So like your universe could be big, but you're connected to it. So like you feel the impact and the reverb quicker than a person who's not connected to his or her universe. So like, and this fate or karma is has its own like multiplier or like effect in terms of the life you're given. So like here is where like the universe like balances itself out, because you can't expect a person living in a slum to have the same impact as someone who's living as a president, or like, okay, that was a bad example, but like imagine someone who's born into poverty and someone who's born into riches. So like the universal demand in terms of the reflection are not the same, because someone's world is bigger than the other one. But if the the connectivity will be determined by the soul, but the distance was already predetermined by what you could call fate or karma, or the life you were given. The In terms of like the reflection, like your soul. So like the equation now, okay, we'll just cut that part out. So if your fate to the power of the life it's given is the reflection, both of these two sides of the equation come out as yin and yang, or like the light side and the dark side, where like it comes out as the light side and the dark side, whereas both of these are usually like back to the idea of the circle. So like the circle implies a border, or like a regulation, or like set rules. And for me, these like they divide the equation. Now these set rules for me are what most common people want to term God as, like the probability engine, or like the spirit, the like the baseline. So uh, and when I say like the one people call it God, I'm saying that in terms of like misunderstanding, because like when in different spiritual schools, like the idea of God or like deities, I feel like we simplify it in in terms of like you want them to have human features or like human traits, but the essence of God in itself should be like an entity that's fair to all. That's why like in the Bible they usually say like okay, the Bible is somehow contradictory in terms of that they say that your God has a plan for you, but he still need, like other parts of the Bible still need you to pray in terms of asking for what you want from God. But in the beginning they already say God has a plan for you. So like for me, in terms of like the understanding there, it's you as the soul has a request, but you have to work towards that request, or like you have to do something for the reflection to come back, for there to be a reflection of that want in the universe of itself. So what is going to bring about all of that in it together is now God in quotes, like the fairness, or like the probability engine, or like the baseline rules that determine existence for everyone. And here I'm not talking about like energy flow, or like I'm not trying to explain the universal machine, nothing like that. I'm just trying to explain existence, or like this is regardless of like the dimensions, or like the world lines, all of that. We're just assuming. So like when I say like baseline rules, or like the probability engine, I'm saying like the infinity loop in the sky we see from the sun, or like the rising of the sun and the moon, like things we can't change, like positions of the stars, like the north pole, things like that. Like these are set rules that were there and will be there regardless of this existence. Now I'm limiting it to this existence, because this is the only existence I have experienced. So like the so like when I say when I compound this, like, in terms of the universe, like, this is how, like, people talk of this idea of Yahweh, like Yahweh, the breathing in and the breathing out, like a living, breathing universe, like where we are all supposed to take part in the balance. Where, like, when we have the idea of, like, light, the light side and the dark side, so, like, there has to be that balance of, we talk about, like, in different schools we talk about the ether. So, like, the ether is like the baseline. The light is like, it's the reflections. It's what we term as reality, but there's an underlying part that connects all of us. So, like, when we say yin and yang in like the like this the Chinese schools of, like, thought. I heard about this, like, it was like yesterday. I was watching some Chinese lady's channel where, like, it was this, she described this idea of how the universe was made, using how, like, the progenitor made a spoon using the stars, and he was like, he was cooking the universe. That's why, like, we have that curve of, like, the 369 curve, where, like, our universe follows that 1 point something something rule, like the one Terence Howard talks about. I'm not really sure how to explain it, but, like, the ohm thing. So, like, it all, for me, when all of this is compounded in terms of understanding, it really shows that what we term as life, or, like, we want to segment as life as human beings, is it's all part of the same thing. Like, we are all part of a living, breathing ecosystem. Like, I feel like the degrees of separation we give ourselves, like, it all comes from a lack of understanding. Because, like, even me in the beginning, like, before I was going on my, like, before I fell down the rabbit hole, let me say that, I used to think, like, the soul, like, I never understood, like the three body problem. Like, for example, I used to think, like, the soul was, like, the totality, where, like, it was the connection to the universe. But I, like, when you start, like, visiting these different, like, spiritual schools, you really learn to see the three separations, where it's like your body is the reflection, your soul is the actuating force, then, like, the universe gives us the conditions for, like, the development of our body, where, like, there are simple rules. Like, if you think of eating, the food you eat becomes a part of the structure of your body, where, like, that's why, like, doctors tell us to eat well and, like, things like that. So, like, if we could apply all this in terms of, like, real life, real life application, like, everyone would have a better life, or, like, a better existence, because we would, uh, it gives us, like, the baseline understanding of, like, even how to interact with each other. Because, like, even when I think of people who don't understand themselves, it's like they don't understand the separation of the three bodies. Because, like, if someone understood that there is a body, there's your mind, and there's the soul, where the and there's also, like, and, like, all of that is under the spirit, like, where we talk of the three body problem. So, like, if we understand that your soul is the piece of the spirit you're calling your own. So, like, when we talk about your soul, I'm talking about, like, I usually give this example of the guys who, like, usually hear people of, like, uh when you go out, like, people are, like, someone will be, like, a comic, he'll be funny on the night out, but, like, when he goes home he's crying by themselves. So, like, for that person, they're not satisfying their souls. Like, their soul is crying. Like, that emotion is the perspiration of their soul. So, like, their soul wants to cry. That's why they're crying at night by themselves, because they're not satisfying their soul, you see. So, and when you talk about the mind is just a facilitator. It's the connector for us and this piece of existence. So, like, when we talk about the mind, I feel like most people want to mistake it for consciousness. And for me, from my understanding, I think consciousness is like a degree of, and like it's something you develop. It's a degree of understanding. So, like, I usually, okay, for me, the example I'd give is like a dog. When you see a dog that's been accustomed to a house environment, like it sees itself, it gets pampered, it like, I feel like the degree of consciousness of that dog can't be compared to the consciousness of a wild dog, or like a dog that's living in the streets. Like, I feel like the level of awareness of a dog that's been in a house, or that's been trained, or like it's used to human interaction, has a greater level of consciousness than the dog that's just been hunting and killing and eating only, and like, doing the basic things that a dog does. So, like, if people understood these levels of like interaction, where like you understand, like, your body, like your mind is the connector to the body, and the body is like, it's also a reflection of the mind. So, like, they all come together, so that, even if you use that and you expound it outwards, you say that my actions, in terms of my actions for the soul, have an impact to my immediate surrounding. That's like that's like the immediate reflection. But you also understand that all that you do is under the spirit. So, like, you understand that it's all connected, and like you're affecting your simple actions today, regardless of whether you know it or not, affect everyone. Like, we usually hear this in in science, where you talk about the butterfly effect. Like, well, like they simply explain that uh, a butterfly like flicking its wings today could cause a black hole in like 10,000 years in the future. Like, that's the realm of possibility we live in. So, like, it might seem impossible, or like just outright stupid, but like that's how the universe works. We are all connected. Like, we are all part of a living, breathing universe. Like, and I don't even know how I can stress that anymore. Like, it's just, it all comes down to that level of understanding, where like, and like, I'm someone who understands that knowledge is power. So, and regardless of how that knowledge is given, so like, if people just understood this, I feel like we could say that we are succeeding as entities of life. But like, I don't know. But just to summarize, I was just saying, for me, the equation of life comes about as the entity you are is equals to your soul, to the power of the time it's given, multiplied by your fate or your karma to the power of the life you were given. All of this is divided by the probability engine, or like the essence of existence, where what we call the spirit, or like God, or whatever you want to call it. Like, but uh, that's it for me. Like, that's all I'm saying.